Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, I'm doing something that I'm gonna call the 3 levels of console Fortnite players. If you guys know who destinysjesus is, he does a cool little series like this on his channel, but for specific parts of competitive Fortnite. For example, 3 levels of solo endgame, 3 levels of mid-game rotation, stuff like that. And what it's about is basically breaking down what a below average, average, and great player would do in specific situations that leads to them either being successful or unsuccessful as a whole. This video is going to follow that same format, but also with a lot of differences. I'm going to be going over a bunch of different skills like building and editing, aim, IQ, all that good stuff, and basically talking about what the difference is between a below average, average, and great console player in regards to whatever skill we're going over. I think it's going to be a really interesting video that should help you guys realize where you are as a player in each skill category, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so the first skill that we're going to be going over in this video is building and editing, since they both kind of go hand in hand together. So even though this is a little bit of an oversimplification, I believe that your skill level as a builder and editor comes down to 2 main things: knowledge and then speed/consistency. Knowledge mostly means that you know how to do all the most important building and editing techniques, and you also know when the right situations are to use each of them specifically. Now for speed/consistency, this one's a lot more straightforward. It just means that you can build and edit really fast without messing up. So when I think of a below average player in this category, I think of someone who's weak when it comes to both knowledge and speed. It's not that below average builders and editors don't know how to build or edit at all, because that's incredibly rare nowadays, but these are the players that don't really know how to tunnel, and if they try, they mess up a lot. Maybe they know one retake that's ridiculously simple, and when it comes to editing, they mostly just stick to super simple and predictable one-tile edits. These players would really benefit from spending even just 30 minutes to an hour one time in creative mode learning some techniques and improving their speed, but for whatever reason, they don't do that. An average console builder and editor, in my opinion, likely has the necessary knowledge to be even better, but they're held back by their speed and consistency. If I had to guess, I'd say that the highest percentage of console players fall into this category, and it makes sense that most people would be average. Like I alluded to in the below average section, it really isn't super hard to learn the necessary building and editing techniques used by even top tier players, but the real differentiator here is always going to be how fast you can do those techniques, and while you're going super fast, also barely ever messing up. That's kind of spoiler for what I was going to say for the great level builders and editors, so there you go. These guys know all the techniques, they know the perfect time and situations to use them, their building and editing speeds are both top tier, and as if that wasn't enough, they barely ever make mistakes. And I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, but just keep in mind that this is revolved around console players, so great level speed and consistency may not be what you're imagining in your head. I know that when I think of top building and editing speed, I think of guys like Clicks or FaZe Sway, but it's borderline impossible to ever reach that level on console. So the main point I'm trying to make here is don't think that you can't put yourself in the great category just because you're not as cracked as Clicks or someone like that. The next skill that we're going to be going over the 3 levels of is aim. Now this one's a little tricky because it's going to vary a bit player by player, but here's what I think based on my experience. A bad aimer is someone who may be decent at medium to long range with ARs. They probably don't laser anybody out of the air, but they can definitely put their crosshair on and track the enemy decently well. However, their biggest struggle when it comes to aim is in close range fights. It's no secret that in Fortnite, close range fights are without a doubt the most important time to have really good aim, but sadly, it's also the most difficult. Bad aimers struggle in 50-50 fights, they rarely hit shotgun headshots, and their movement and evasion in point-blank range engagements are also likely lacking as well. Unfortunately, close range aim is one of the hardest skills to improve in all of Fortnite, but the best advice I can give to someone who really wants to improve that specifically is to grind box fights as much as possible. When it comes to average aimers, honestly, they probably aren't that much better than bad aimers at medium range. Sure, they probably laser or triple dink enemies a little more, but nothing absolutely massive. The main difference is gonna come in those close range engagements. Average aimers are a decent amount more consistent, winning 50-50s, they know when to use their shotgun and when to use their SMG, they hit shotgun headshots somewhat frequently, and even though they may not use many advanced movement techniques, they at the very least strafe or jump while in point blank fights. And when it comes to the great aimers, yeah sure, they probably laser people with ARs a little bit more than the bad and average players, but honestly, without L2 spamming really being a viable option anymore, the amount of bloom in Fortnite makes it so that there really isn't that massive of a difference between great, average, or even bad players when it comes to medium range aim. The main thing that makes the great aimers great is having top tier shotgun aim. Sure, shotguns are at probably their lowest point ever right now, but they're almost always going to be the most important weapon category in all of Fortnite. It's so hard to deal a lot of damage in Fortnite with building being such a powerful defensive measure that you need to be able to hit high damage shotgun shots, and that's always going to be the most important aiming skill. And it's also always going to be what separates the great aimers from everybody else. Now let's talk about the 3 levels of console players when it comes to game sense. Game sense is a bit of an open term with many different definitions, but I basically consider it to be very similar to general awareness. Below average game sense players are very prone to losing track of enemies in fights, and in general, they just make a bunch of little awareness-based mistakes like forgetting to reload a weapon before a fight, or not healing up in the middle of a fight even when they have shield. Sure, most of these mistakes aren't gonna single-handedly lose you fights, but they sure do play a huge factor. And if you feel like you're a below average game sense player, I'll be honest, that's a skill that's kinda hard to develop, but it really just comes down to playing the game more and more and trying to stay super focused while doing so. Average game sense players really don't make any of those super simple mistakes that just requires you to have basic level awareness, but they still probably struggle a little bit with tracking enemies in fights. They're probably fine if it's a 1v1 or maybe a 1v2, but they'll frequently get surprised and shot from behind anytime a fight gets super chaotic with a bunch of players. And then for great game sense players, I compare it to like having a mini UAV in their brain. These players somehow are always able to track where everybody is in a fight, even if it's 6 or 7 plus players, and because of that awareness, it allows them to position themselves in the best possible spot. These players also do really little awareness-based things that make them just a tad bit more successful than average players. For example, average or below average players will overexpose themselves while shooting at medium range and run the risk of being sniped, but great game sense players are always aware of that and therefore barely ever get sniped. The final skill category I want to go over is IQ. The difference between IQ and game sense can be kinda blurred sometimes, but here's my opinion. Low IQ players just make a lot of bad decisions before fights even start. For example, they frequently choose to push bad fights where the opponent has natural high ground or is just in a better general position. Low IQ players also struggle to make the smartest rotations in games, and they often get caught in super congested areas because of it. Chap actually said something that I think fits really well here. It was like, low IQ players make decisions but then can't explain why they made them because they don't really know. Average IQ players are kinda hit or miss in a lot of the situations I just described. They don't always make the perfect play by any means, but they're smart enough to not push fights that they clearly have a significant disadvantage in before it even starts. And then when it comes to the great IQ players, they're pretty much close to perfect when it comes to decision making. These are the guys that even in super stacked and chaotic endgames can rotate perfectly to the dead side of zone. These are the players that just have a great feel for when it's time to push someone head on and when to not do that and sort of disengage or reposition. I really think that game sense and IQ specifically are probably even more important than general mechanics, especially on console, but I know that a lot of people would disagree with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. I want to know, based on what I described in this video, do you consider yourself to be a below average, average, or great level player? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.